Welcome to the Gentleman's Guide to Gaming. This video is, well, it's something of a follow-up to a video from many years ago. I was requested all that time ago to make a video on giving locations character. The subscriber of the time was a relatively new GM and wanted to know how to describe locations in games to make the players really feel immersed in the setting. And I spent quite a lot of time describing an abattoir. And the reason I could do that is because I had work experience from having worked in an abattoir for a brief period of time. It wasn't my finest few months, I can tell you that. But I certainly learned a lot, and I picked up a lot of horror from so doing. And that video was reasonably popular. You know, it's a general topic. Some people tune in for videos like that, some people don't. But one person who did was Nalo, who is one of the developers, one of the overseers of Cult Divinity Lost, and it was that video that ultimately, I believe, led to my getting hired to work on the Cult Divinity Lost RPG in various forms over the months and years since that time. So I'm glad I made it. Now, interestingly enough, one of the people who has been generous enough to back The World Below, pre-order it, get the PDF, which of course you can do immediately. That's what those banners at the beginning of these videos do. You know, I realized I could game the pre-roll ads. The fact that you can pay money to Google, of course, to have them roll ads, or you can just put them in your videos yourself. And so that's what I'm doing. Nothing too elaborate. If you want to skip them, just skip ahead about 5 seconds at the beginning of every video. It's fine. But anyway, this person who picked up a copy of The World Below and got their PDF wanted a video on giving locations character. They cited this video from many years ago and wanted another example of a location, and specifically to see whether I could improvise one. So come up with a location that I haven't done any preparation for. So I've got a random generator, a location generator here, and I will click a button, and hopefully it's going to give me I've gone for urban locations, so I've narrowed it down to that. Hopefully it's going to give me a location that I can do something with, otherwise I gotta start this video again and you'll never know. Okay, well, that's a good one. Right, so my location is it's described here as dancing bar. I'm going to interpret that as a strip club, or for clickbait, the title of this video will be Titty Bar. We're going to describe the Titty Bar. Now, interestingly enough, in a Vampire the Requiem Chronicle I'm running for some of my Patreons presently, they have recently visited a strip club. So let's see whether I can pull some ideas from there while also coming up with some new ones. Let's call our Titty Bar Lucky's. That's the name I used in Requiem, and it is a name I got from the TV show Bosch, which is a wonderful Amazon Prime television show based on the Michael Connelly novels surrounding the character of that name. And I've always liked the name Lucky's because it's very nebulous. You can have a strip club with a name like the Pink Pussycat or the or the Titty Twister and similar, but that kind of gives it all away. Lucky's is slightly discreet. It tells you something about the owner, presumably, if there is a Lucky, but otherwise all you have to go on is the front face of this operation. And Lucky's is an illicit strip club, so it probably has has betting, bookies on the upper floors. It has likely private rooms as a brothel in the back. So from the front, it isn't some all glamour, all glitz strip club. It isn't the kind of titty bar that has a big name and flashing sign in neon or anything like that. It is pretty inconspicuous. It will still be buried somewhere in the heart of a city's downtown, but it's not going to be on the main thoroughfare. You're not going to be able to accidentally walk in. The likelihood is if you go to Lucky's, you know why you are going there. So when you step in or approach the doors of Lucky's, you'll see the first thing that is waiting for you is a heavy. Of course, you always need a doorman for a place like this, and probably very limited parking spaces. It's likely if you're going here, you're getting dropped off by a taxi, an Uber, or maybe even a chauffeur. And the heavy is dressed as many a doorman is, in a leather or bouncer bomber jacket, something that's a little tight around his girth, and he speaks to you only in very low tones, short monosyllabic words. Something like, "Do you have invitation?" "Yes, invitation." Let's make him have an impenetrably Eastern European accent. We'll say that this doorman is Bulgarian. Why the hell not? So we have a Bulgarian doorman who asks you for an invitation. Now, he is a man whose face has seen better days. His nose is crooked, his cheek has been mashed in more than once, he has the pock marks of acne scars across his forehead, and you can see tattoos rising up from his collar and going up either side of his neck. His hair is a stubble, but yeah, you think he has done his best to conceal his premature baldness. And he looks at you with beady eyes and wants an invitation. "Do you have invitation?" he says. Do you have an invitation? Well, that's going to be part of the plot, of course, of you're going to Lucky's. Why are your characters going to Lucky's? Well, it really depends. Is this a game of Curseborn? Is it a game of Vampire? Is this a game of Cyberpunk, Shadowrun? They came from Classified. There's lots of games in which Lucky's could make an appearance. Let's say you don't have an invitation, so you're going to have to make it clear that you can pay your way. Ultimately, you get past the doorman, and he opens the door for you. When he opens it, you are smacked in the face. This is one of the best ways to really give a location character: olfactories. Tastes and smells. People relate, listeners, viewers, role players, anyone can relate to the smell of freshly baked bread. Well, that isn't the smell that emerges from Lucky's. It's probably some heady cocktail of, I want to say, baby oil and candied peanuts. Because I like putting things together that don't necessarily mesh. If you really wanted to make it seedy, you'd go for some kind of sweat and bodily fluids, but that wouldn't be appealing on any level. Baby oil is a very good way of concealing said odours without making it smell sterile, like something like KY jelly would. And candied peanuts is incongruous. So it gives you that idea that it's almost a mixture of a weightlifting show, people are showing off their bodies, baby oil, and also a carnival atmosphere, candied peanuts. It's a unique odour that is not going to exist outside of this incredibly controlled ecosystem. So when you describe it, and it filling the nostrils and lacquering the tongues of your player characters as they step in, they are immediately immersed in what is probably quite an alien environment to them. It immediately feels unsettling. And as they walk through the door, I think it's too easy to make the air be filled with smoke. This isn't a noir I'm looking at. I'm looking at more of a modern, a contemporary setting. I think everything all the way to the back draped off areas of the titty bar is pretty transparent, but your view is immediately obstructed by a girl who passes into shot. I like to imagine these almost like making a film, how when the camera is tracking through the doorway, there will be a character in the foreground that will step into it, maybe in a wide-angled lens, who says, "Hi, is this your first time in Lucky's? Let me take you to a table." And we can describe this young woman as well. She introduces herself. She says, "Hi, my name is Belle. I'm going to be your server today. And if you like, I can even do some dancing for you later. Maybe take you into one of the private rooms if you want a private moment of entertainment." The offer of something illicit, the reason you come to a place like this, of course, isn't just for the candied peanuts and the beer. Speaking of the beer, you place your order with Belle, who brings your drink, and as is the routine in any place like this, it is going to be so diluted as to taste like yellow fizzy water. Make it clear that this is not wholesome, that whatever you are consuming here is just utterly sapped of any purity, because this is the case in Lucky's. There is nothing pure here. Now, on the subject of incongruity, we can talk about some of the inhabitants of this club. For example, it's very easy to make it all about the three dancers on the dancing platforms, or performing on the bar if it's a really claustrophobic place. You know, all young women, and we can say, if we want to strike a certain tone, they look strung out, emaciated. You can see their rib cages very clearly, or even track marks up their veins. But that is, again, going for a very grimy tone that I think Lucky's is going to make efforts to conceal. He probably makes his way through lots of different girls every few weeks. You know, people come to the city to make it big, and when they fail, they end up in a place like this. So for the first few weeks, they look good. Then they get strung out. They get kicked to the curb. Maybe they get used for more grimy purposes at that point. Let's say sex work, and but on the streets. So by that point, he has brought some fresher faces in. So the people you see at the front look fine. And that isn't incongruous. They are performing a dance that seems jilting, halting, stuttering. It makes you feel slightly uncomfortable, amiss, like, not that they're drugged, but almost that they're hypnotized, that their movements are more almost robotic and angular rather than the soft flowing dances. And Belle notices you looking at the dancing girls with some confusion, and she says, if you want something a little more rhythmic, why don't you just call me over later? Because she's always hustling. All the people in a place like this are always hustling. They make their money on the hustle. But other than the strange, halting, juddering dancers, we do need incongruity, and for that I would look to something that seems wholly out of place. An older man and woman, maybe in their 60s, in a booth seat, hands held together, just smiling, watching, as if they've come out for a pleasant night on the town, nice meal, a movie, and then an evening's entertainment at Lucky's. These two, neither of them seem uncomfortable. They are overdressed for the occasion. If this were a game of vampire, this is where we would almost certainly think these people are vampires. But if this isn't a game of vampire, that poses other interesting questions. Why are people like that in a place like this? You can look at the more traditional set of customers that would come to a place like this, but also really hone in on what makes them uncomfortable and unusual, to again hammer home that idea of discomfort, claustrophobia. As an example, you could have a group of 6 or 7 young men, early 20s through to, I guess, early 30s. They look like day traders, you know, all wearing white shirts or checked shirts, collars undone, ties loose or completely absent. They have had a good day trading, and they're wasting a lot of the cash that they have on hand in a place like this. And they're mostly doing it to crow to each other. It's almost a one-upmanship game. The idea that when one of them puts a 20 down, the next one's going to put a 50 down, and the next one's going to put 100 down, and they're going, yeah, you know, and they're drinking, and they're each trying to push each other to a different limit, which should, for the majority of them, seem like normal behavior. Maybe one of them stands out because he is clearly uncomfortable in this atmosphere. This is not his natural habitat. This pale-faced, spotty young man with greasy hair and a suit that doesn't fit. This is his first week on the job. He didn't realise that working at an eminent financial firm would result in him having to come here for his first birthday outing for one of his colleagues. And you can really drive into the sexuality of the young men here. I guess you could even call it homoeroticism of how they might as well all be jerking each other off sat at this bar watching these dancers, because yes, there is a woman or women dancing for them and showing off their bodies, but the true entertainment that these guys are getting is from each other. They are, without acknowledging it, all rocking, throbbing erections and coaxing each other to burst prematurely, and it's revolting, and it is unusual, unseemly, but it is part of the ritual of coming to a place like this, that you don't acknowledge the fact that, despite the fact you're here with your friends, you are all, in theory, being turned on by this process in a group environment, which for the majority is an unusual set of events, but in a place like this is seen as normal. And again, to go back to the fact that it isn't the fact that there's women dancing there that does this, it's the fact that they are being encouraged by their fellow young men to do it. And so when you move past them, you brush past them, you're basically brushing past them almost like you're priming or brushing against nitroglycerin. They are all primed to explode, these young men, and knock one the wrong way, and you might make that happen. You can expect these kinds of characters to goad you, to insult you, to crow, to of course be thrown out when they get too drunk or too handsy. Now let's talk a little about the interior, the actual decor in a place like this. Well, again, with a titty bar, you can go many different ways. It can look gaudy, it can look classy, it can look subtle, and in our case we're going to make Lucky's look, I think, we'll try and make it look classy. It is a veneer of class, so it isn't really cheap beaded curtains and gold drapes. These are thick curtains, and there are no sticky floors here. Quite the contrary, they are polished to the point that when you look down, and you often feel the need to look down out of self-consciousness, you see your face staring back up at you. The lights in here are constantly beaming and swinging around. They are on motors to do so. It isn't quite a strobe effect. I think you can get into a strobe effect later, especially if you time it with music. And there should be a hefty line of alcohols, spirits, liqueurs, and so on that are offered behind the bar, which is operated by a larger lady, tattoos up her arms. She clearly cares about her appearance, albeit not in a way similar to the dancers. And she looks like she would rather be anywhere other than here. But she does her job, and she keeps the bar damn well. Everything is maintained to not a sterile degree, but certainly clean, because the people who are invited to a place like this, or people who can afford to get into the place like this, don't want to feel like they're surrounded by murk. They want to be in a place that rewards them for their affluence. Now, we can get into the idea as well, of course, of music. Now, if you're running a game and you actually want a soundtrack, there are plenty of soundtracks, strip club soundtracks you could go for. I don't tend to use music consistently in the background of games I run because I find it can be distracting, but I do quite often like to set a tone for the kind of music. So, for example, if I want it to be an oppressive kind of scene, I might say that as you enter, the music is something that goes a little like an, excuse me, womp 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 womp, and I do that 4 times with intent, because I think if you only do it twice, all you're doing is painting a picture. If you do it 3 times, that feels normal. 4 times, it's starting to become overbearing, oppressive. Yes, we know what the sound is like. Why do you keep repeating it? Because music in a place like this is supposed to be oppressive. It isn't supposed to relax you. It is supposed to direct you. It's supposed to steer you. So if you want that music to be a bit more dance-like in a club style, and to go counter to the fact that everything here seems quite calm and relaxed, it can create a nice discordance in the mind of the players. Then, when the main dancer comes out, maybe there's the main attraction in Lucky's is the dancer who gets everything off in the public arena. Ariel, we will call her. Because in Lucky's, all of the dancers have Disney princess names just to add another line of muck to this place. Ariel takes it all off, and when she does, when she gets to her final articles of clothing, you can get back into the really... It's much faster now. It's like... Romp, 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 and that's when it starts strobing, and the light is flickering, and you can barely see what's in front of you. It adds to the sense of claustrophobia, a panic attack, an ecological panic attack. The entire area is a panic attack. But also, from a business perspective, it means that while Ariel is finally taking off her underwear, and you can see everything, you can barely see anything because it's strobing. And by the time the strobe ends, she has left, but there will be people who want to see what they were denied, and so that is where the private dance will come in. Now, appreciating we've gone over 20 minutes now, I could give time to describe things like private dancing booths and the kinds of acts that would be offered. The fact that behind one of these curtains is going to be a door that's marked staff only, that if the player characters are observant enough, they might be able to pick up on that this is the way staff are passing in and out, and that is the way you can go up those strangely comfortably carpeted stairs, almost as if this bar is adjoining a house, a domicile, and you can enter the gambling area of this joint. But I think the main thing is when you are describing a location, yes, you don't want to narrate for 20 minutes what a place is like. What you want to do is hit the players with the main beats, which are, as I say, the feel as you approach. Does this place feel public? Does it feel private? Does it feel illicit? Does it feel illegal? Then the olfactories. What are the senses, those tastes and smells that first hit you when you enter? Those are going to have one of the greatest impacts on your players when you start narrating. Then you go for overwhelming. For me, it's a young woman moving straight into your eye line and obscuring everything else behind you, at which point she wants to guide you to a seat. She is all you can see. She is going to take you to that seat. She is going to keep eyes locked on you, get you drinking, and then immersed in the subject. And then, once you are sat, you have the entire bar in front of you. You can see the older couple over there. You can see the group of young men basically all masturbating together. And then, of course, you have the dancers on their respective tables and platforms and in various states of undress. You can, of course, style up, provide more focus on the fact that the girls might be in competition with each other, but I don't tend to go for that. I think most exotic dancers don't let their rivalries play out on the public stage in the showgirl style. Rather, I think that anything like that is going to be kept behind closed doors, but it's unlikely they're going to be coordinated, that's for sure. And from there, you've got an interesting array of NPCs. You've got a setting. You have your booth seats. You've got your seats along the bar. You've got seats around tables. You've got private rooms, should you wish for one. You've got atmosphere. You've, of course, got your sound effects and potentially lighting effects. You don't need to provide them in real space. What you're doing is hopefully describing them with enough detail that the players can sense them. That's what you want. You want players to feel like they are fully there. Now, not every single location and every single game needs something like this. Sometimes you just want a warehouse. And a warehouse can just be an empty warehouse. A white room can be a white room. But sometimes setting is everything. And if I do another video of these, and I hope to, I want to talk about how to make a battlefield out of an urban setting to make your combats more interesting in RPGs, because I am bored to the back teeth of role-playing games that set combat across a flat plane with no obstructions and nothing to interact with. So we'll talk about that next time. But thank you very much for watching.